then we became close
Okay, good,
friends.
bye.
He moved to California,
So anyway,
and then I moved to California 4 or 5 years later,
Okay.
and my studio is about, just several miles south of his.
Okay,
And,
so
yeah.
south of Santa Rosa.
Well, yeah, and so he was in Santa Rosa, I was in Kenmore.
Okay.
And, but yeah, so, we kept our friendship up. I go up and have lunch with him at noon up at the ice arena. And talk about old times and all the weird things we used to do,
What's one of the weird things that happened there when he was teaching cartooning, or you were teaching cartooning?
Well, I can teach. Well, there's several, but the one thing in particular is sort of a funny story, I think, in that, there was a couple of them. One is, we were on the third floor, right, teaching, and occasionally we would park our cars down along the street, and the meter maid would come by. Some days she did, some days she didn't, right? So it was kind of a guessing game, right? Sometimes we'd put our car in the lot and we figured she wasn't going to show up, we'd park on the street. So anyhow, this one day I pulled up and I parked and was going to go up to work, and I parked right behind Schulz's car. I knew his car. I parked right behind him. And anyhow, there was a piece of paper laying on the ground, and it was about the size of a parking ticket. So I picked it up, and it was a piece of paper, right? So I slid it underneath Schulz's windshield, right? So then I go up to the third floor, right? And I figured maybe the meter maid will come by, and I can work something here. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I got up there, and so I looked out the window, and nothing was happening. And then after a bit, I called Schulz, and I called him out of the window, and I said, look down here. I said, here's this whole line of cars, and nobody's got any tickets except you. Now, from the third floor, it looked like he had a ticket, right? So anyhow, and he was bemoaning that all morning. So we went out to lunch together, and we're walking by the cars, right? And on every car, there was a real ticket except his. And the meter maid had obviously come by and thought that she or somebody else had ticketed the car. And he was the only guy on the block with no ticket parked on the street. So that's
what a great story. That is awesome. Super. Well, how many years were you there at Art Instruction Schools?
I was there maybe after Sparky left. We and I we were there together probably a year and a half, 2 years, and then I worked probably another year myself there, and then I moved on to California.
Okay. What was your art specialty? Was it cartooning?
I'm a cartoonist. Yeah, I'm still a cartoonist.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Where have you had your stuff published?
Well, first I was with the Register and Tribune Syndicate out of New York for a long time, and then I went after that. I did that for about years, and I started doing a lot of things for television development, cartoon special stuff, primarily for commercials. And then I went back to cartooning. Then I did a cartoon called Abracadabra for a number of years for the Chicago Tribune and New York Daily News Syndicate. Then I went back and did a lot of stuff for television. Then I got, and then now I'm doing editorial cartoons again. I'm doing editorial cartoons and social satire, and then I do 2 of those a week, and then I do a daily internationally syndicated newspaper program called Challenger, and that's sold in the country in foreign papers. That type of thing.
So you're busy? And
busy.
It keeps you young, right?
And doing what?
It keeps you young?
Keeps me young.
Absolutely.
Keeps me confused. No, and I'm doing a lot of magazine covers too. So.
Wow, wonderful. Well, I teach cartooning to boys and girls all over Minnesota, and I go into schools.
Right.
And I also am working on a TV show, and that's what this is going to be for.
Okay.
So I was wondering, do you have any advice you might want to give the next generation of cartoonists?
Whoa, that's a tough one. Well, the thing is, I think number one is if you're going to be a cartoonist, learn how to write. Now, this is something that most people omit when they're working developing cartoons and they're learning cartooning and so on, because writing is a 99% of cartooning. Cartooning, I mean, you got to be able to draw. You got to be able to illustrate what you want to say. But if you don't have anything to say, what have you got to draw, right?
Exactly.
So the point is that unfortunately a lot of people that want to become cartoonists the big percentage of them I found that I've talked to really haven't put their head to writing gags, to writing. Now you can write certainly continuity things, right? Story strips or things like that. But I say that cartoonists certainly work hard on your cartooning, but also develop a writing skill that will allow you to be able to be funny.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Great advice.
Well,
great
yeah,
advice.
thank you. Uh-huh.
One more question about when Sparky started his cartoon strip, and I believe it was 1952 when he introduced you.
Correct.
And how did that all come about?
Well, he and I were sitting there working one day, and he was working on the strip, cartooning and on Peanuts, and he said to me, the strip had just been running a small time at that time, and then he said, I'd like to introduce another character in the strip, and he said, I'd like to pattern character after you, name the character Linus, and what do you think of that? And I said, well, I think, yeah, that's fine. He says, here's some sketches that I've came up with, and he had a couple sketches very close to what Linus appeared in, would ultimately appear, right? We looked at it, and he said, what do you think of this guy? And I said, looks great to me, right? Go with it, right? Never thinking into the future where all this was going, right? To us, it was just, get it done and let's go to lunch, right? And, priority thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
And, but no, and that's the way it went. So, the whole thing about Sparky developing the strip when he was working on it, number one, he wanted to be a cartoonist, so that's what he put his heart and soul in. Number two, he never had any illusions, I think, about where it was all going. He's a very modest, humble, right? That's who he was, right? And all he knew was that he wanted to draw a comic strip, and I have a feeling that if he could have had just survival pay, he would have still been doing it, even if it hadn't gone to the great heights, that it did. Because that's what he cared about.
Yep.
Get up in the morning, do the strip, go to bed, right? Get up in the morning, do the strip, and
Sounds
enjoy
like
the
a
day.
good life to me.
Well, yeah. But I think that's the kind of dedication you have to have if you're going to be doing a feature, especially if you want to get doing things professionally, right? And you got to remember you're competing against all kinds of other people that want to be there too. So when you look down and you say, "Isn't this great?" It might be great, but there might be something greater around the corner. Right?
Good point.
Yeah,
Excellent.
right. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for taking time out.
That's
and
fine.
Talking to me. I have one more request, and that's if you would sign the Linus drawings there, mainly because I would like to present these to the Ogaras, and so that they can
in St. Paul, Bar and Grill.
So that they can put them in there, and
Sure.
you'll be even more and more famous.
Well, that's
at least
wonderful.
At least
Thank you.
amongst the great people in St. Paul. So look at
Okay.
Great. Get this here, and this out here. Yeah, I think maybe you could just sign one of them. That would be probably okay. Hopefully
kind
this
of
is
a big enough point on it.
Yeah.
That's
a good one.
That's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do I sign it to anybody in particular, or just sign?
I think maybe if you just autographed it, that would be fine. Or
Okay. Okay.
yeah, that would be
Okay.
fantastic.
You can get his picture by this.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right.
Okay.
Very, very good.
Okay.
Picture with our statue?
Sure. All right.
Maybe if
I love this.
Yeah, maybe George,
Okay.
could you? That'd be great. And how about getting a still on this? That would be good too. Great. Move this out of the way. Show his black shoes.
Okay.
Or your
Yeah,
black
are
shoes.
you in the
this
picture
case.
here somewhere? I hope.
Yeah, let me get over here.
All right, here you guys are. All right. Well, why don't you all get in? You get in front. All
Yeah,
right.
you're the.
All right. Well, get us in here. All right.
Now hold on.
There we go. Look at him. Oh, look at him.
The little one there. All right.
One more. Okay. That's great.
Got it? Thank you.
Great.
All right, now I have a small request of you.